Yep, so we are on YouTube now. So I'll give to Mas Rio and Jake.
I think we start with Emily first, if I'm not mistaken, to open.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to our event today, jointly held by AIYA and CAUSINDY. I am the Operations Director from AIYA and also a Pathways Committee member. And I thank all the mentors, mentees, and guest speakers who are attending here and on YouTube. So just to give a quick background of the Pathways program. The Pathways program is an online mentoring program, and it was started in 2020 by CAUSINDY in collaboration with AIYA and implemented through the support of a grant from the Australian government through AII, the Australian Indonesia Institute. So this year's Pathways program was a huge success with a total of 26 mentees and another 26 mentors. We're currently in the last 2 months of the mentoring program, and I hope that everyone's gotten as much benefits as they had during the course of this program. I especially thank all the mentors and the mentees for the survey that they have participated in, and the results are well received and they will inform the next iteration of the program. So before we launch into today's event, I'll first show the video that the team has been preparing. So the objective of this video is to share some of the feedback that we've received from both the mentees and the mentors. Before I share this, I just really like to thank everyone who has participated in this video interview. And the video is about 7 minutes long, and I'll just share my screen now. Oops.
It's been so helpful just to have have someone in the know who knows my context and who knows sort of what my sort of day-to-day role somewhat entails, and therefore some of the challenges I might have. So I've really benefited from just being able to have someone to process with and just get some really good input and ideas and guidance.
I see mentorships as a very valuable process. Mentorships could provide the platform to help me reflect, communicate, and plan the pathway that we wish to get at some point.
Hi everyone, my name is Clarice Campbell and I'm the National President of the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association. AIYA has been really privileged this year to work very closely with the Conference of Australian and Indonesian Youth, or CAUSINDY, on an amazing program called Pathways. Pathways is a mentoring program where we have matched alumni of CAUSINDY's previous conferences with AIYA members. Our first cohort has seen 27 pairs matched with one another to meet regularly and to attend amazing events organised by the committee. So I look forward to seeing you guys participate in the future.
My name is Jay Stevens and I'm the current chair of CAUSINDY, the Congress of Australia-Indonesia Youth. The Pathways program is a mentorship program in collaboration with AIYA that started almost 6 to 12 months ago now for the first time, and it involves choosing mentees from AIYA and pairing them with mentors from CAUSINDY and CAUSINDY's alumni and team members specifically, who have demonstrated their impact in the Australia-Indonesia relationship and are typically early to mid-career. I want to thank the Australia-Indonesia Institute, an arm of DFAT, for their incredible support in enabling this program and providing funding for us to enable the online platform, which has been embraced by our participants.
I think I was firstly exposed to Australia-Indonesia space since I did my master's program. during 2012 until 2013 in the University of Western Australia.
So my first exposures to get involved in Australia-Indonesia space was when I was first joining as a volunteer in the Australia-Indonesia Youth Associations, or AIYA chapter Jakarta, back then in 2017.
I think when I was in university studying international relations in Unpar, Parayangan Campus University, that was also the first kind of like engagement that I have with international students from Australia through ITT's program. And then they kind of like show their interest kind of like studying about Indonesia, and I feel like I also need to actually have this, relationship better in a way that I want to study more about Australia.
And ever since 2005, I've had a really strong passion for Indonesia, and I've sort of become, as I say, an Indonesianist.
I'm interested in Indonesia-Australia bilateral relationship because I studied IR back in university, and I took 2 semesters student exchange with University of Western Australia, and then I came back and then I joined AIYA Jakarta chapter events. And I love the vibe.
I first got involved in the Australia-Indonesia space when I was studying at Murdoch University in Perth. I heard about the Australian Consortium for In-Country Indonesian Studies, ACITUS, and I just thought it sounded so interesting.
I think I need to find someone that kind of like vibing with me and in sync with me in understanding that we need to build this kind of like relationship, and it is important for Australians to understand the hazards that we have so we can actually help each other in a way.
As I think I have not found any kind of this opportunity provided for me beforehand, except the Pathways program from CAUSINDY. I heard a lot about CAUSINDY, so when the opportunity came up, I was very motivated to sign up, as I believe the opportunity would help me to share and reflect on my career aspirations, provide me an opportunity of an endless learning, and of course to build personal and professional networking in the process.
Something so simple but effective, and I've already started implementing it. As soon as we hung up the phone, I started mapping out, now until the end of my contract and what I'm going to hope to achieve month by month. That's probably different to what my supervisors would set out for me. So something simple like that, really practical. And yeah, just being able to have someone to ask questions to, someone who's much more experienced and also really well connected. Like I remember our first meeting, Donnie said, well, I mean, you must know C4, right? And I was like, C4? What's that? And it's this organization in Indonesia that would be perfect for me to look into as and when, we can travel again and when I have more experience.
So for being a mentor in this program, my mentee, Min, he's so curious and so engaged and so interested in what I do and in how I work and, how I approach work, that his questions really cause me to stop and think about how I work and what I do and try to, put into words things that I think might come naturally or how I do something. It really has helped me to be more, do some more self-analysis on my way of working and, and what my goals are and what my objectives are. So I found it really, really helpful and really helped me with self-reflection as well, which has been really unexpected and really valuable.
I think the program is extremely valuable, and I think that all of us, no matter how successful we are in our careers or no matter how far ahead we are, like where we are in our careers, I think it's really good for us to have a mentor, someone that we can, I guess, share like what we're feeling or like something we're unsure of, I guess, in our careers.
100% yes, especially like to be a mentor, because there's a lot of organizations building peer-to-peer relationship among youth between Australia and Indonesia, and it's been happening for years and years, and the amount of people that are developing their career amazingly is there. It's just like there's not many facilitated mentorship program, and I think this one particularly is well facilitated, like what Rebecca said, matched perfectly, facilitated perfectly, and all of the handbook and guidance provided also kind of like help us to do like an efficient, effective mentorship program. And I think that's what the amazing features that Pathways have, where it helps not just the mentee to grow, but also the mentors to grow. So it's definitely makes sense to sign up and not just helping someone's career, but also helping us learning to, design our future career.
Let's give a big round of applause for the video. Thank you so much again to all the participants of the video, be it mentors or mentees. And we really hope that by watching this video, you're also able to reflect on your experiences throughout this program and what you have learned from it. So now I'm just going to be delivering the agenda for today's event. So today's event is called Sharing Leadership Experiences During the COVID-19 Pandemic, and it will be featuring Astrid Kartika, a CAUSINDY 2014 alumna who currently works as a unit manager at the Decentralized Governance at DFAT, Australian Embassy in Jakarta. So the moderators today will be Rio and Jake, and Rio and Jake will also be introducing themselves before we start the event. So before I hand over the mic to the moderators, I would just quickly like to mention that all the participants can write their questions in the Zoom chat or in the YouTube chat. Otherwise, they can turn the video on when indicated by the moderators. So over to you, Rio and Jake.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And as well as a thank you again also to everyone who participated today. So yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to Pathways virtual discussion today. So first of all, we're hoping that everyone is keeping dry and well in this uncertain, turbulent kind of weather surrounding Jakarta this past couple of days. Hopefully everyone is not severely, if not all, impacted by the monsoon flood that we're having in the past couple of days. So we have today our speaker. We have our speaker today, Ibu Astrid Kartika. Hi, Ibu Astrid. From the Australian Embassy Jakarta, was also, as Emily has said, was a CAUSINDY delegate back in 2014 conference in Jakarta. Is joining us with us today. And we'll be discussing leadership in the time of change and crisis. It is quite a theme to discuss today. And Pathways Committee of CAUSINDY and AIYA picked this theme to elevate into a virtual event because of its timely and relevant topic for us to be inspired by leadership styles, experience, skills, motivation by our speaker, Ibu Astrid, today. So Pathways Mentoring Program itself is now on the 7th of 8th month of the program. And on behalf of the committee and both from the mentors and mentees, we would like to thank everyone in continuing their commitment and participation to the program. So my name is Rio Afifuddin. I am one of the moderators today and also one of the mentors at the Pathways Mentoring Program. I'm very keen to moderate the discussion today with my mentoring partner, with my mentee, Jake Turvey, who is also here today as a moderator. Hello, Jake.
Hello. Hi, Rio. Hi, everyone. I hope people in Jakarta and Indonesia are doing well, obviously amongst the challenging weather and, of course, amongst the ongoing pandemic. So for today's discussion, the format's pretty simple. We're going to be opening up with leadership in general, discussion about general leadership. Before we delve further into the Ibu Astrid's experience with managing a team and managing priorities, whilst also maintaining personal health during this continuing crisis. So as mentioned before, if anyone has any questions, if you're a mentor or mentee as part of Pathways, you can enter the question in the chat, or you can unmute and ask via your video. And if you're joining via YouTube, you can pop it in the comment question box and we'll pass it on during the conversation. Yes, so without further ado, hello Astrid, how are you?
Hello guys, and I think I would rather not to be called as Ibu because otherwise am I that old already? To just call, with my name, Astrid.
No worries.
The story about, when you go to gas stations and then people in the gas stations call you Ibu, and then you suddenly feel so low of being called Ibu. But if they call you with your name or Mbak, and you know, I usually feel, well, yeah, all right, I'm still young, I'm still young. Thank you so much for calling me with my name or with Mbak instead of Ibu. Anyway, but just call me with anything that you like. If you like to call me Ibu, that's fine. I'll give you stipend next month.
No worries. Okay, so the theme for today is obviously leadership, and it's a very broad topic, and obviously one that's very contested at times. It depends on anyone's kind of personal and professional view, and it's very, a bit contested and many different perspectives on it. So to kind of open the discussion, could you possibly please share with us how you see your approach to leadership or some particular traits in your leadership style?
Interesting question. It's always good to start the conversation with one interesting question so that we can have a flowy chat afterward. But it's not always easy to answer because as a human being, we evolve, I evolve. So my leadership style, say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, would probably a bit different with my leadership style these days. But as you said, Jake, that there are certain traits that will follow me through all the time, actually, and the experiences just enrich those traits, and then you know, making a required adjustment as we go through different, you know, facet or different phase in our life. So I would say that people who knows me will say that I have quite a strategic view on the work that I'm doing, including the life that I'm having, but also I can be very detailed. So I can be both strategic at that level, but I can also be, as needed, very detailed and know how to execute stuff into very much detailed plan of implementation. And I think that's what makes me survive today. And I think that is one trait that a good leader must have, you know, that you have to understand the strategic level of what you are doing. You have to have the skills to develop a strategic plan, but you also need to understand the details, including the challenges while implementing those strategic plans, so that what you are actually making is an executable strategic plan. So I would say that I'm inclined toward that skill set. I'm inclined toward that style as a leader myself. So yeah, and I think that has been quite good, because in the job that I've been doing with now with the Australian Embassy with DFAT, or previously with the WHO or UNDP, or even at the hospital when I was still a doctor, having a strategic thinking that is accompanied by detailed understanding on how the situations on the ground is, you know, will help a lot in making sure that our plan can be executed, can be implemented well. And if there are challenges along the way when implementing those plan, any strategic plan or even any simple plan, you know then how to adjust because you understand the reality on the ground. So what about that?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And I really love your point about needing to adapt as you evolve as an employee and as a leader as well.
Indeed, indeed. And I remember that I don't always have a team, right? Sometimes I am the team myself. So when I was with UNDP, for example, I was an advisor for the BRR, so Badan Rehabilitasi Rekonstruksi for Aceh and Nias. So that's post-tsunami and earthquake in Aceh and Nias back then in 2004-2005. And as an advisor, I don't have a team, right? However, our big boss then, Pak Kuntoro Mangkusubroto, I'm not sure whether young generations know about him, but he's such a great leader that Indonesia has, and the chairman of the BRR Aceh and Nias.
he trusted me, despite me being an advisor funded by UN, but he trusted me to actually lead the rehabilitation and reconstructions of a health sector on Nias Island, which means I have the responsibility to work together to lead the team that are necessarily my my staff or my my team members in a structural way. That there were around, how many team was there? Around 20, 25 staff for BRR whom I have to lead, despite me not having a structural positions being their leader. And it was quite tricky in a way because I don't have, again, that structural obligations, but I have job responsibility to lead those rehabilitation and reconstructions activities on the ground. And the leadership, style that I had then certainly is different with what I'm having now or the past 10 years. 8 years now, I forgot how long I've been working for the Australian government, but because I now have my own team in the embassy that I'm leading, but also in parallel, there are other big teams on the program that I'm not necessarily leading structurally, but I'm the responsible persons at the embassy who should monitor their work, right? So there are different ways of positions where we could play our roles quite differently, and that requires us being adaptive to the entire situations. And that means adaptability is another key trait that that we ought to have as a leader, I think.
Thank you, Astrid. I just want to note the fact that you have been working in multiple sectors throughout your trajectory of career. And the most interesting part would be the one that you mentioned, that you were in the health sector, as in fact you were once a doctor, and then right now you are full on on the governance sector. What do you think the difference between the two sectors, and how do you maintaining priorities, which I think that both sectors have, very much different one and the other?
Thanks, Rio. I was once a doctor, indeed. I was once treating patients. It was an interesting experience. But I think I would start by perhaps saying, and this is something which I've often said to my colleagues or even my children, that education actually educate us to be better, right? It doesn't have, but it does not necessarily mean that we have to work based on what we have been educated with, right? And especially in the context of Indonesia, where education system can be quite rigid and it doesn't allow people or students to actually be creative, and so they are forced to learn science or language and etc. altogether, regardless of their interest. But all of those are educating us. So one thing that I'm being thankful really of having studied medicine as my degree and having a medical doctor myself back then was, it taught me to be really, really thorough in assessing something. It taught me the details of the situations, and it taught me as well to be self-reliant, because doctors supposed to be confident about its own skills, supposed to be relying on itself most of the time. But then sometimes we need to rely on the others' expertise as well. But mostly doctors will have to rely on upgrading its own skills throughout the time. So that is something which I've been very thankful for being a medical doctor back then. And when I graduated and worked as a medical doctor, I wasn't that interested actually being a medical doctor. The clinical persons, I wasn't into that one, but I was like, but I've studied for 6 years, then it's a pity if I don't practice medicine. So I did practice medicine, but then at the hospital where I work, I was more inclined toward working in the managerial sector, in the management. So because I had experiences being a news anchor in TVRI Yogyakarta. So I'm from UGM and I work at TVRI Yogyakarta then as an anchor of some of the programs. I applied for working as a marketing manager at that hospital in addition of being attending physicians or being a medical doctor. So I could see the stark differences between working as a medical doctor and then working as a manager in a new hospital. It's quite a big hospital, but new. Because we were not trained to be a manager. Medical doctor isn't trained to be a manager. We are trained to be a case manager, you know, a specific case in terms of disease, but not being a manager in the organizational setting. But I was so much in love with working on the management, you know, in the management of the hospital instead of being a clinician. And as I said earlier, that I was lucky because I was medical doctor, so I know the details, or I know how to plan detailed stuff. But working as a manager in a hospital require me to learn more about management, organizational capacity, and then stakeholders engagement, and etc. Something which we've never learned as a medical doctor. And then I was so happy to find that that was my passion. And when tsunami hit Aceh, I was called by WHO because I was, you know, I was involved in several studies by WHO with the Faculty of Medicine of UGM. So when tsunami hit, I was offered a positions with WHO to help rehabilitations and reconstructions of health sector. Then I moved, and that's when I moved to WHO. I quit my medicine practice, my clinical practice, and then I work fully on the public sector with WHO, and that's where I found this is my work. So if Rio, if you could share the slide that shows where our passion is, you know, the purpose, the meaning of life, I think that can give a quite nice, how to say, nice descriptions of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is something which I think is important for young people, right? So we are often stuck in a study which we thought we like, or which our parents think would be best for us. But when we studied, we found out that it wasn't something that we really enjoyed the most. And it's okay. It's okay. And you don't have to quit, you know, but you could quit if you have the luxury of quitting, but you don't have to quit. You can stay graduated and find the passions through, you know, tests and failures that you have. And that's what happened to me as well. So I tried this. I didn't like it. I tried the other one. I didn't like it. I tried the other one, and then I like it. So can you share that, Rio? Can't hear you.
Yeah, 1 second. I'll share screen.
Okay, thank you. So feel free to stop me. I mean, if I take too long to explain. But yeah, so this is, so Rio is sharing with you this. I found this in, I'm not sure where did I, not that one, the first one. Yeah, the green one. Yes, this one. Yeah, that one. So you see there, to find this balance is important. And if you are lucky enough to find this balance, you are blessed. And I think I'm blessed because I'm now working on issues that I really love the most. And I think the world needs it. Well, at least the world of Indonesia needs it. I'm paid for it, and I'm well paid for it. And I think I'm good at it. I'm not sure whether I'm great at it, but I think I'm good at it, and I'm continuously expanding my skills and my knowledge and through experiences through various mechanisms so that I can be great at it. So I'm feeling that my profession, passion, mission, and vocational needs are fulfilled. So once you are at this, and then you know that you are in your element, and then you can give your best. But until you find it, you will find it a struggle probably to understand why you are doing, why I'm here, why I'm stuck at the office on Sunday, why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I have to write this, you know. But if you can find this balance, that is great. So that's why after finding this, which I found after I moved, I quit my medicine practice and work for WHO and then work for UNDP, working for some other donors programs, and now with DFAT, I'm in my element. And that's why then, because I'm in my element, I can expand my skills as I like, you know, and I'm being given that opportunity to expand. So I'm not sure whether I answered your question, Rio. I think I'm a bit, you know, going here and there, but feel free to redirect me to where your question was aiming to actually.
No, wait, you quite sorry, you answered really very insightfully, and it's really inspiring to hear that you were that there's a very good trajectory in the way that you're navigating your career progress, and it is to be very inspiring for us to hear. Jake, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I was listening, and I was very, as Ria said, it was such an inspiring question. I'm curious how you're able to translate that purpose into how you lead your team, or the leadership skills and attributes that you now attempt to exhibit and kind of bring to work.
And I'm actually jumping forward by answering this now, but this pandemic really put lots of challenges in me trying to translate the purpose and the meaning of the work I'm doing, and then driving the team to do that. You know why? Because we are stuck here at home. We are safely nested. We don't have any issues with food, with security, with Wi-Fi, with other IT stuff. We are stay connected despite through online. Whenever I want a good cup of coffee, I can drive and go and get a good cup of coffee. I'm still doing lots of work and with the team at home, I think excellently, but there is something missing over there. And this is something which is, I think, have been eroding the meaning of the work and the purpose of the work I'm doing, to be honest, which is our inability to see the actual stuff on the ground. So prior to the pandemic, as a development worker, yes, we work in the donor. We have our own ways of work, you know, but we have the opportunities, and we've been using those opportunities to travel from Aceh to Papua to see the real challenges on the ground, see how poor people have been suffering for not getting good access to health, education, civil registration services. And some of the marginalized populations are being forgotten by the systems and etc. So we see those stuff directly. And we know that the work that we are doing through our development programs are trying to help those people, the poor, the marginalized, or those who aren't really benefited by the systems, to get better access to the system. So it gives more meaning, it gives more purpose to what we are doing. And now with the pandemic, we are not able to do that. It is eroding the purpose. So I guess I'm jumping forward here, but I guess the key point is that, to answer your question, Jake, is that you know that what you are doing is actually helping the others getting better at whatever field it is. If you are a teacher, you know that your students will be growing and being knowledgeable and be better at you as a teacher, right? And a medical doctor will know that the patients will get healthier and then, you know, can do the jobs or the work or being back in the society fully with, you know, healthy physical situations. And as development workers, we know that our work will actually helping the poor, the needy, the marginalized populations in Indonesia or wherever we work in Pacific, PNG, elsewhere, so that they can be better at in accessing, they can be having better access to health, education, and other type of services they are normally getting if there is no such development works. So, so that's, I guess the message is that, what is the impact of your work? And then you have to be open about that and sharing that with your family, with your colleagues, with your teamwork, with your team. What we are doing is actually translating into something better for the others. So with that, you bring that passions into what you are doing and becomes a mission that you want to achieve together, right? Is it okay?
Yeah, that's perfect, and I love that the idea of finding purpose to drive yourself and to drive your team towards a kind of a shared goal as well. And you mentioned kind of how the pandemic has kind of impacted your work, and I think that's kind of a great segue into our next couple of questions about, if you mind maybe sharing with us how you've been able to quickly adapt the way you lead your team when the pandemic first kind of hit. Was there kind of any major changes you needed to make?
Oh, lots of major changes, actually. And that's not only for the benefit of the team or the program that we are working on, but also for the benefit of myself. And especially for someone who, me, I like to be certain of what I'm doing. I like to know where I'm actually heading before getting the others walk together with me. But the pandemic really, closed my eyes, basically. And, the horizon that I used to have was no longer there. It's slowly coming back now, but the first 6 months was pretty bad. And because for various reasons, as we know, we didn't know how severe the pandemic was. We didn't even know what this COVID is, what its ability is, we didn't know about that. And yet there were so many news outlets, whether through social media or news online and etc., that they try to be experts on COVID and giving us so much information. And I think the informations were getting too much to handle, and we were so stressful. We didn't want to die. And we didn't want our colleagues or our families affected by this pandemic. But we know that slowly we are losing our friends, our colleagues, our families due to the pandemic. So I think the very first 6 months was very hard for us, for me, and especially, and to be honest with the team, whether this is the team that I'm having at the embassy or the team on the program that we are managing, is to be honest that we are struggling, right? So we could apologize by not being able to give certainty because there is no such certainty at that time. And we should be honest with our struggle. That's the first thing that I'm doing, I think, if you agreed. And be open with, the challenges that we as a team are facing, but also us individually are facing as well, because my circumstance is probably different with my team's circumstance. And it is important that all of us know our circumstance and the team's circumstance, so that when we would like to go through together, we are being aware of what the other team members are actually experiencing. So prior to the pandemic, it is important, but I think it is even more important now, because when we were still able to meet in person, things can be quickly done on the ground, on the spot, and we could talk. But now, probably my wake up time is different with my team's wake up time. but trying to be disciplined with when to start and when to finish work is also important. So first is to be honest with the situations, our own situations, and secondly knows what the others are experiencing. That means you have to talk, something which not that I don't normally like, but because the work demand takes so much time, then we didn't have much time to have small talk. But during the pandemic, it's very important to have small talks and check people's whereabouts, check people's situations. And then trying really, the third one is trying to create certainty within uncertainty. What it means, there is certain level of certainty that we could create with us as individual or with the small team that we are having, and just agree with your team. So what sort of certainty we would like to create to give us a sense of certainty. Sorry, too much words of certainty, but basically we know what we are trying to do in the context of huge uncertainty, but will create certainty within ourselves. And that will start with, knowing what the priorities are and how we adjust our priorities, because in the past we can work, even after office hour, but during the pandemic, it is important to really maintain your mental health and work-life balance. It's even more important. So we are pretty strict in when to work, when not to work, when to contact, when not to contact. So yeah, it's not easy, but things are getting better at, I think, now that we know how to deal with at least our own health. But still, our inability to travel, because we are not able to travel, is kind of slowly eroding the purpose, and we are still working on it. I'm still working on it, how to bring back the purpose despite us not being able to see the actual stuff on the ground.
Wow, yeah, that is just to be honest as well, I'm in the same team with Astrid as well. So most of the what she has shared with us, I have gone through as well. The same the same time in the same months that we have gone through as well, from the time the pandemic was started back in March. And yeah, it was really a rapid adjustment that we had to take, and it was not actually the first crisis that we had gone through as a team, Yamba. Yeah, it was not really the first one, because we also had to go through with regards to a crisis in Papua back in 2019. So yeah, it is a lingering time right now with the pandemic, and it is very we are also very helpful the fact that our working environment as well enable people within the embassy to be mindful and also taking care of their mental well-being. And yes, thank you so much for that insight, comments and answers, Astrid. So just a little bit deeper delving into this mental health well-being. I think this is very important right now to come into discussion about that, because we've heard this term, it is okay not to be okay. It is something that is being pushed by lots of in the pop culture, essentially, for it is not to be okay. For it to be okay not to be okay in times of pandemic. Yeah. Do you motivate not only your team personally, but also the the people in the program as well, to be very much mindful of those? And how do you reckon that it is not only applying to the people that you manage, but also to yourself and your family in the lingering crisis and turbulent times like this?
I guess for the benefit of the others here, so we are at the embassy, have what we call as a development branch, where we are responsible of overseeing and managing Australia Indonesia's development programs. So that means there are programs that we manage. So what Rio was referring being a program team is the program that we manage. So for example, myself at the embassy, I have a team of 5 or 6. And then our unit manage one of the biggest development programs in Indonesia called COMPAC. So this is Australia-Indonesia Partnership for Decentralization or Decentralized Governance Program. And the program is managed by the what we call as a managing contractor, and they have their own team, which is around 120 staff and being located in Jakarta as well as in 7 provinces in Indonesia. So we have direct responsibility of ensuring that development program that we manage, which is COMPAC, delivers what it is designed to deliver and what it is promised to deliver. And our stakeholders are not only in Indonesia, but also in Australia, as aware of. It gives us with a unique situations because, and especially myself, because while I'm a direct leader of my team at the embassy, but I'm not directly leading the team, 120 staff at the COMPAC program, right? But I'm responsible individually and then as a leader in the unit to ensure that that program actually delivers its best amid the pandemic. And it is really challenging because you don't have that direct relationship, right? Or direct responsibility, direct leadership roles. However, because as part of our responsibility, or as it is our main responsibility to ensure that every single cent that Australian taxpayer has paid for the development program is delivered effectively, it is important for us to really engage with the team who deliver the COMPAC program to monitor and to evaluate their works. But we also know that in the current situations, it's very difficult for them to deliver the work, right? And like us, they are working from home, and there are limits of what we could do by working from home. And it is also important that while they're working from home, that they maintain their mental health as well, in addition to maintaining their physical health. So we've lost our colleague working for the program due to COVID, and it hit us hard. So what I guess there are 2 things that I would like to highlight here. So first is same as how I applied adjusting the priorities and etc. with the team that I'm having at the embassy. As a unit at the embassy, we are also talking with the program to ensure that they are adjusting their approaches and their priorities while we are still having this pandemic. There are lots of issues around that. You know, it's not only that the activities are adjusted, that the activities are delivered in a COVID-safe manner, that the activities are delivered effectively, but we also have to be responsible in overseeing the financial management of it. And it's not an easy part, to be honest, because we are given the envelope to spend effectively, but that envelope needs to be adjusted, and there are potential underspends and etc. And those can be quite stressful, not only during the pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic. And now it becomes much more stressful. So the second bit is that how to ensure that we all are in the same, not necessarily in the same boat as such, because we are in the same storm, but we need to ensure that we are aligned, and that requires us to talk again, talk and talk. I think Rio, as you know, we've been talking a lot with the program team virtually, just making sure that they feel still connected with the embassy, with donors, and we also check from time to time if there are staff who got infected by COVID and etc. So making sure that the communication channel is open regardless of the situation, regardless of how our situation is important. And that applies as well to me as a person, that I would like to reach out to people whom I'm the closest with, and to help me going through this storm actually. So communication is a key, but again, adjusting our expectations, adjusting priorities is also key, but making sure that people are not feeling that they are left alone in this. So the jargon, we are in this together, is very important. And I think I would like to conclude this by saying that, that slogan, so if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together, right? So it applies to all situations prior and during COVID. But sometimes we need to walk alone, but under current situation, it is important that we can go as far as possible by walking together. And that means you have to align and being hands in hands with everyone around us, including the program. Does it answer your question, Rio?
I think it definitely does. It gives us, who don't work at DFAT as well, a good kind of insight into how the government and kind of the embassy has responded. And I think I see this time and time again, one of the few silver linings to come out of the pandemic, I guess, is this kind of, increase in awareness and flexibility and adaptability from organizations and companies and, bosses towards our, workers and teammates and colleagues and friends as well. Yeah.
Indeed, and that is something that I must praise Australian government. Well, in DFAT at least, at the Australian Embassy Jakarta, that they've been very supportive and including in providing, good enabling environment to work, for us. They're very supportive. They've been very supportive. I think one of role models, which I don't really see in the government of Indonesia, to be honest. We got questions actually in the chat room.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So from the first one from Clarice, the AIYA president. She says, Astrid, do you have any advice for people who would like to increase their leadership skills in a workplace where they don't yet have a leadership position? Where should young people, I guess especially, look to develop these skills?
Good questions. I was asking that question myself when I just started my career, right? And what I learned from my experiences and afterward from readings, it is important that we, as persons, have the skills to manage three groups of people that we need to manage. And it applies not only for those who are already in leadership positions, but also includes those who haven't been in leadership positions, including young staff. So first is upward management. So it is very important for you to be able to manage your boss, right? And your boss can come in various forms. The needy one, the demanding one, the supportive one, you name it. And if you go through long enough in the work in various organizations, or even in the same organizations, you got changes in leaderships from time to time, you will see different people. And I think I've been working for, no, I forgot how long, but certainly more than 15 years. And I probably have more than 20, 30 bosses, and they all are different, right? And because I work in international organizations, I have bosses from multicultural background, and they have their own upbringing and they have different approaches, But it is important for us to have that skill. Upward management is very important. And how to do upward management is by first to understand who your boss is, right? Who means not his name, his address, and etc., but who he actually is as a human, as a professional, and as a boss. And you need to adjust your expectations, your working styles, and etc., depending on who your boss is. And for us who work at the embassy, or for me who also work in the UN organizations back then, we got quite regular changes in our bosses, like diplomats they have 3-year cycle. So I got new boss every 3 years. And that means I have to readjust every 3 years. And if you get used to it, I mean, it comes automatically. You will first learn who your boss is, and then what he likes, what he doesn't like. And you could learn by either asking him directly, asking her directly, or you learn from your mistakes. I do both. It depends on the situations. If I have a boss who is quite open and I know it since the very beginning, I'll be having frank conversations about understanding his preference, his methodology of work, and etc. But if I learn that my new boss isn't someone who likes to be open about something, so I learn from mistakes. So do it. But upward management is a must. And the second one is sideways management or horizontal management. So that means your colleagues, whether those in the same team with you or not in the same team. So you have to be able to work with them. And what I mean being, having to work with them is that means that you have to understand them and expect minimum of them understanding you, because we often ask people to understand more than us understanding them, but the work situation isn't always like that, right? But you have to be able to work with your colleagues. And then lastly is, I guess for those who are already in the managerial positions, is team management. This is very important for us to have good skills on downward management. So the McKinsey report, I mean, if you read various McKinsey reports, McKinsey says that in one of their report is that the upward and sideways or horizontal management make up to around 50% which determine your career pathway, right? So you have to be good at it so that the career pathway you would like to pursue, and you can use those capitals in you pursuing the careers that you want or any leaders that you would like to climb. I'm not sure whether it's pretty clear. So Clarice, feel free to have follow-up questions if you want to.
No, that was really good, Boo. Thank you so much for your insights.
Mbak.
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
We also have questions from Celis.
Yeah, we have another question from Celis, who would like to know if you may define leadership, how that could be, and how young people could foster their leadership during this COVID-19 pandemic, where human interactions are mainly shifted in more virtual modes compared to what we have previously.
Yeah, that's really challenging, Celis, as we've talked at length earlier. But let me start by quoting a motto from Ki Hajar Dewantara. I'm not sure for my Australian colleagues whether you know Ki Hajar Dewantara, but Ki Hajar Dewantara is our hero, national hero in Indonesia, and his birthday on the 2nd of May is used as a commemoration of National Education Day. So it's very famous here, and he has 3 motto that I really love, and I think that's what I think being a perfect leadership. So these mottos are in Japanese. I will translate from Japanese to Bahasa Indonesia, then to English, so that you know the context. So first is ing ngarso sung tulodo. In Bahasa Indonesia, it means di depan memberi contoh atau memberi teladan. So for those in front, you should set examples. You should lead the way. But then the second one is ing madyo mangun karso. So that means di tengah memberi semangat dan bekerja sama. So that means you should be with people in the middle, building or foster the partnerships and working together and build encouragement. And then lastly, tut wuri handayani, or di belakang memberi dorongan atau menuntun. So that means we at the back should be able to push forward the team, provide encouragement, right? So what it actually entails is that a good leadership skills must have those three capabilities. You have to be able to be sitting at the front, leading and providing examples. You should be able to be with your team, building, or working together, and then give them the encouragement. But sometimes you need to be at the back and then push your team forward while letting them taking the lead. And I guess those are really the skill sets that are critical for a good leadership, in my opinion. And you don't have to be at the front all the time. You don't have to be at the back all the time. You don't have to be at the middle all the time. Sometimes you have to be leading. Sometimes you have to be at the back pushing. Sometimes you have to be in the middle and then suffering together, right? So those are what I think what leadership really is. And related with your second question, where the human interactions are very, very limited during this stuff, during these tough situations, it's very difficult then to be in the middle, right? Physically, but it's very, but I think how to say? I mean, for us who are living in big cities, we are fortunate to have still good Wi-Fi connections, telecommunications channels that enable us to be with the team or with our friends, with our colleagues, and etc. But just imagine young people who are living in the margin of the cities, in the rural areas, who are struggling to have access online. It becomes much more difficult than for them to be adaptive to the situations. So, to answer that questions, I think I need to discuss more with you, Celeste. I don't think I know how to, because it's such a difficult situation for us who can have easy access to internet and to be online. If we keep intruding into people's time, we can be quite intrusive, right? And it's not good either. But then for not being able to, or for not connecting, and then we don't allow ourselves to be connected. So how to have a good balance on when to connect, on when not to connect, it's, I think, important. And for the young people, I guess it is also important in applying those into what I said earlier, upward management and sideways or horizontal management or downward management. You don't have to be appear online all the time to your boss. You don't have to be appear online all the time to your colleagues or to your staff, but just make sure that you are there, you stay connected, and you stay on the course in trying to achieve what you, for example, agreed to do with your boss or with your colleagues and etc. So try to stay connected, but try not to be too intrusive into people's online screen, I think. Let me check again.
Yeah, so we have one last question from Donny. Donny is one of our mentors in our Pathways program. He's also a member of CAUSINDY as well. But so he asks, as an aspiring leader, how can we maintain our authenticity and creativity in bringing out progressive work for our team, especially when we are faced with a rigid style of leadership that is still favored by many organizations, and for him personally is outdated? It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Well, what I believe really since long time ago is that two things, and this is something that I keep doing, right? And those two things are being genuine and do your best. So being genuine on what you think, on what you feel, on what drives you, and what you do, I guess will keep our path of doing the things that we do on track, because you don't have any vested interest that you probably forgot along the way. But by being genuine means that what you're doing is really driven by yourself, and by being genuine means that you will not forget your course because you're being genuine at it. So being genuine is very important, and this will also I think in my experiences will help with our authenticity, because you are being yourself and you're being genuine with yourself, so you're being authentic with what you're doing, right? And the second bit is do your best regardless of the situations. Your best doesn't necessarily mean the best according to your boss standard or your friend's standard, but that's okay, right? As long as you believe that what you are doing is best according to your standard. So do your best. And do your best, I think, requires lots of learning, lots of readings, lots of experiencing stuff, so that you know that if you want to achieve point A, the best way of achieving a point B is by taking, this questions, that questions, and etc. And that means you have to read a lot, you have to learn a lot, you have to discuss a lot. So, I guess I would say that those two have helped me being who I am now. And things sometimes don't pay off immediately, but if I believe that what I'm doing is the best, things will get paid off later on, because we are building our careers not with an overnight approach, right? So as long as we are alive, as long as we are in our career pathways, so we are actually building our credentials from day to day. So just make sure you are being genuine, and make sure that you always deliver your best, and then the rest will follow. And I'm not sure also with the, I think Donnie, you were saying that many organizations, sorry, I think I lost, many organizations prefers to have rigid leadership style. Maybe, what about you share with us, Donnie? What do you mean by a rigid leadership style? I guess because I think from our experiences working for the Australian Embassy since 2010, we are very lucky that these organizations has been very flexible and not rigid at all. So Donnie, would you mind sharing what you mean by rigid leadership? It's good to hear your voice as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, also Basil and Rio and Jake, for moderating. It's actually great in a way. Rigid, about what I mean by rigid, also because I work in development sectors, and then we are faced with, a lot of organizations that used to work with Indonesian government and have to follow the hierarchies. Sorry, it's just hard to say. And then it's pretty rigid in a way, because like there's a certain things that we have to follow just to be able to kind of like appoint a decision. And for us, like for me, for example, that I love to kind of like engage with innovation, and there's some flair of creativity in terms of decision-making process and the approach of programs. Sometimes it being stopped by, turns out to be, it's not following what's been done for years and years and years in terms of decision-making process. And that kind of like stops a lot of aspiring leaders to kind of like invent or move forward. So what I'm saying is like, we are progressing to a better position right now. We are moving forward, I'm sure. But then like what I said earlier, like how to maintain that authenticity and creativity up until we will reach to that point. You are right, we actually need to keep progressing. And I think that's what I'm doing right now. But then it's just like how to maintain that while we are transitioning into a more and a better way of, you know, leading our organization. So that's what I mean by rigid.
Thanks, Danny. I think if I may answer directly, Rio and Jake, you actually reminded me as to why I didn't want to continue being a clinician. So I think I'm born as a free spirit, if I may say, and being stuck in a hierarchical situation really sucked me out. I'm not good at it. I'm not good with too rigid and bureaucratical approach. I'm not good with having to say yes all the time to bosses, you know, because being genuine, as I said earlier, means that I can be different with what my bosses view of stuff. And there are organizations, indeed, I absolutely agree with you, who are quite rigid on that. And frankly speaking, seniority, you know, gets into the way in many of the organizations, including in the hospitals, to be honest. And that's why I think, despite me spending years studying medicine, I'm not really born into a medicine practice because I cannot really cope with that hierarchical and too rigid seniority. You know, so that's why I quit. And I shifted the discussions into public sector. I think that is one of the challenges that Indonesia is having, right? Because we are still following a bureaucratic model of public sector, while the other countries, developed countries, including Australia, New Zealand, and many Scandinavian countries, they've moved towards, you know, new public management approach where bureaucracy isn't really the main approach in delivering public sector. And that's why I was saying we are lucky to have worked at the Australian Embassy, where there is no such thing as rigid bureaucracy. There are certain bureaucracy that we need to follow, otherwise then the organizations will be quite chaotic if there is no structure. But we are pretty flexible. But frankly speaking, Indonesians organizations, including ministries or local governments and etc., they are still pretty rigid in their own bureaucratical approach. And that means talented young staff who like to think out of the box and who like to challenge the rigid situations will probably get kicked out in no time, right? So that is, I couldn't really answer, you know, what to do if we are stuck in that situations, because I got myself out of that situation, right? So I couldn't really deal with it. So I think my advice would be, if you could not deal with it and it really erode you professionally, emotionally, your mental health is getting eroded by that, just get out, you know, find the place where you are better suited for. But from the development perspective, and that is one of the things that Australian government is trying to help Indonesia with, you know, so shifting from a rigid bureaucratical approach in running its public sector into a much more fluid, flexible, adaptive, yet deliver effective results. So that has been the core business of, or the core approach of Australia-Indonesia development programs, actually. So I could not answer that question. My advice would be get out if you can. But yeah, so I'm answering it from different aspect of why Australia is doing development programs, exactly to help country like Indonesia and others to move away from their rigid bureaucratical approach that doesn't deliver effective results into something or organization or into an approach that delivers things much more effectively, which usually best done if the organization is flexible and allows young, talented people to drive from within. And for the senior ones to provide the pathways for those talented ones to actually grow and deliver better results, and helping the organizations to deliver better results.
Yeah, I think that's some really sage advice there for Donnie. And I think maybe hopefully with COVID, it's a bit of a catalyst for that will drive some of that change as well in lots of organizations. Just in the last couple minutes as well, we'll try to get through a couple more questions just quickly. We've got one from Nadia who asked, hey, Astrid, how would you handle a situation where you're in a managerial level? So you need to assure the quality of your team, but at the same time need to follow your director or boss, pushing you to get the job done in time, disregarding the kind of the human source that we have.
All right, so remember what I said about Ki Hajar Dewantoro's 3 model, and that those skill sets will need to be used depending on the situations. But you have to master those skill sets. So that's exactly how I'm managing, the work, my team as well as my bosses. So sometimes there are times where things are needed quickly with good quality, and that means I don't have the luxury of getting my team work on that and build their skill set on that particular stuff, which means I have to do it myself because I need to get it done quickly. So if that happens, and it happens a lot as well, not all of the time, but it happens, what I usually do is I do it myself, ensure that what I do satisfy the requirement, not from my boss as such, but requirement from the hierarchy or from the organizations, in a timely manner. Once it is done and satisfactorily, so then I'll talk to my team. Look, but usually I communicated with them that there is this urgent request, I'll do it, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing it and how I do it. So that has been my approach, and I think it works. That means the quality of work that are required to be submitted timely or quickly can be fulfilled, but then afterward I can still have my team's confidence that they're actually not being left out. In the process, it was just things are needing to be done immediately, but then I explained to them how I was doing it. But if we do have, if I do have the luxury of time, and I know that, for example, Rio is very good at writing and analyzing and synthesizing stuff, and there are times to do that, so I will usually delegate. So delegation is important, but make sure that your delegation is suited with the context. So you cannot delegate everything at any given time, because you have to understand the urgency of the staff. But if there are time and you know that your staff is very capable on that, you can delegate to your staff. So the way I'm delegating things as well to my team members is that, and I'm being open, with them. I said that, look, I think you are very good at that, so why don't you take a lead on this? But the other time I would say candidly, not openly, I said that you need to build your skills on this, and I think this provides you with good opportunity to build your skills on that, so why don't you do it? Why don't you take a lead on that, right? So so I've been taking that mixed approach, but again, it depends on the urgency of the staff. But yeah, so, and if there are requests coming over the weekend, I will do it myself. I don't feel good of asking my team to work over the weekend or over the holidays. So I guess that's again what the leader must do. To some degrees, you have to sacrifice, sometimes, but don't do it too often. but and you have to know when to push back. But I seldom pushing back because I know my boss or my organizations will not give me that task over the weekend or for the holiday if they know they could push it after. But sometimes things need to be done immediately, and that level of understanding is, I think, critical to be had by a good leader. Hope that answers your questions.
Yes, she said yes. Thank you so much. So yeah, I think that it is a very insightful and a very illuminating discussion. Unfortunately, we're also a little bit of a tight on time, and I don't know. We have the last question as well with from Tim, but I think that what he asks is very much translated in what you just elaborated about, or if you want to happy to go for about maybe 30 seconds about how to make sure the communication.
30 seconds, okay. That's now. Well, unless it is a classified information, I will always share information to my team. Unless it is classified, because in our organizations, there are classified informations that we have to be careful with. But other than those classified informations, everything I do share with my team, either immediately or a bit delayed. But we have regular meetings, and that's when we are at the office. Even when we are at the office, we have regular unit meeting. And now when we are working from home, we still have the regular ones. So that would be the time where I update my team about what comes from above, unless the classified information. And it is very important for us to be open about those informations and really avoid, being exclusive, because sometimes some people, and I found it in many organizations I work with, they like the exclusivity, right? I mean, a small group of people who knows everything about what is in the head of the big bosses, and they're feeling powerful about having those informations while the rest are not. I don't like it, because I think the more you share information, the more you could drive the organizations to go towards the directions that you want, right? But if you want to be exclusive and want to keep everything by yourself, and then you are basically alone, and you cannot drive the changes that you want with your team or with the rest of people in your organizations. So it is important to make sure that the team is being shared with whatever you are getting from the bosses from the above, but also giving the context, because this is one thing that I also learned. If you just give information as is, it can be misinterpreted. But providing context as to why this information is like this is very important. So what is the context? Oh, the context is because there are changes in senior positions, or the context because of potential cut in budget, the context of different priorities of the organizations, and etc. Hence, this is what the big boss said about something. So it is important that you put context into everything that you share. 30 seconds or 1 minute?
Yeah. It's all good. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I think that. Well, thank you so much, Astrid, for your time, and also thank you so much for all the insightful discussions we have had. And it is a very very timely and very important discussion as well. We talk about leadership, and I think that one of the things that you have mentioned is the one thing that is very much ngena. I don't know what it is in English. I guess it's spot on to me. Yeah, spot on to me directly would be to finding out the purpose, like the purpose of what we're doing, and as well as what it entails is that all the passion, all the mission, as well as the profession, then vocation, and everything that is entailing into all of those will make the potential of being a good leader is going to be more streamlined in our trajectory of becoming of having a leadership skills, as well as to become a good leader. And and also thank you so much for everyone's questions in this. In coming in, it's increasing a little bit, but yeah, we have to wrap up. But thank you so much, Ambassador. Jake, do you have any last point before we wrap up and handing it over to Emily?
Yeah, no last points, but I just thought it was really interesting to hear your perspectives on leadership, particularly, yeah, as Rio said, during this really interesting and trying and difficult times. But yeah, hopefully it's helped a lot of our viewers as well, and I'm sure it's helped all the CAUSINDY and AIYA team and Pathway mentors and mentees. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Anytime.
One last point, Astrid, that I think that we are going to be having the new iteration of Pathways. You will be very much benefited, I guess, in the program if you want to be a mentor in the next iteration of Pathways mentoring program. And then yeah, someone out there is going to be very much benefited from having you as a mentor. So that's what we are wrapping up for today's discussion. Thank you again, Astrid. And I'll see you at work tomorrow.
Jake and others.
And thank you also, Jake, for moderating and handing over to Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you once again to Rio, Jake, and Astrid. So now that we're wrapping up, I'm just gonna do a few housekeeping points. So for all mentees, February's mentoring material on self-care can now be accessed in the Pathways mentoring platform. So that's mentoring.causindy.org. So feel free to check that out. Also, in terms of events, we will be having a closing event to the program by the end of March or in early April. So we will be sending an email update to all mentors and mentees, so keep an eye out for that. So if you have any questions right now, feel free to pop them in the chat. Otherwise, you can also reach out to the Pathways Committee via email. The email is mentoring@ir.org.au. So if you have any ideas or questions, feel free to send it to that email. Lastly, like Ria said, we will endeavor to create the next iteration of the Pathways program, and we will be taking into account all the feedback that we've received throughout the year for improvements, and we'll hope to apply those feedback to the next program, and we welcome everyone's participation. So if you have friends who have applied for this program and you're thinking about applying this year, feel free to look out for updates in the upcoming months. So right now, we're just going to do a quick photo session. So can I invite everyone who is technology capable to turn on their videos so that we can do a good video, a good photo. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna take it. 1, 2, 3. All right. I'm just gonna check that went okay. All right. Terima kasih semua. So that is the end of our event today. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you to our speakers, our moderators, and we hope to see you at our next event. Terima kasih.